Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Rooted Bible Study. I'm Julissa. And today, we're moving deeper into Jesus' final week in Jerusalem. Matthew chapter 22 is absolutely packed with pivotal moments, challenging questions, brilliant answers, and some of the most foundational teachings in all Scripture. So let's jump right into chapter 22 and see what we can
I
learn.
wanna dance like David, I want a faith like Paul, I wanna sing like Silas, tearing down the prison walls. I wanna face that fire, it won't burn me though. God's got my back, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego.
The big theme for us today in Matthew chapter 22 is the nature of God's kingdom and our response to it. We will get to see God's gracious invitation, but also his firm expectation. We will also watch Jesus navigate tricky traps set by his enemies, and we will hear him distill all of God's law down to one simple yet profound core principle. I would definitely say that this is the chapter that really gets to the heart of what it means to follow God. Jesus kicks things off with a parable, almost as a continuation of his warning from the last chapter. He talks about a king who prepares a great wedding feast for his son. He sends out his servants to invite the guests, but they make excuses and refuse to come. Shockingly, some of them grab the king's messengers, treat them badly, and even kill them. And naturally, the king is furious. He sends his army to destroy those murderers and to burn their city. Then he says to his servants, "The wedding feast is ready, but those I invited were not worthy. So go to the street corners and invite to the feast anyone you find." And so the servants go out and they bring everyone, both good and bad, and the feast is filled with guests. But the story isn't over. The king comes in to meet the guests, and he sees a man who isn't wearing a proper wedding garment. When the king asks him about it, the man is speechless. Then the king orders his servant to bind the man and to throw him out. So what's Jesus teaching here? The king is God, the Son is Jesus, and the feast is the kingdom of heaven. The first invited guests are the people of Israel, specifically their religious leaders who rejected God's invitation and persecuted his messengers, the prophets. The destruction of their city foreshadows the destruction of Jerusalem, but then the invitation is extended to anyone, which symbolizes the inclusion of the Gentiles and all people. And what about the wedding garment? Well, it's the key. It signifies being properly prepared in right standing with the king. It's often seen as the righteousness of Christ. It tells us that salvation is a free invitation, but it requires a response of genuine faith and a life transformed by God's grace. It's not enough to just show up. Right after that parable, the Pharisees, along with the Herodians, who were usually their political enemies, join forces to try to trap Jesus. And they come to him with a question that sounds innocent. "Teacher, is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not?" This was a clever trick. If Jesus says yes, pay the taxes, then many of the Jewish people who hated being ruled by Romans would turn against him. But if he says no, don't pay the taxes, then the Pharisees could report him to the Roman government for breaking the law. And Jesus, knowing that they were trying to trap him, asks to see a coin. And they give him a denarius, a Roman coin that has Caesar's face on it. Jesus asks, "Whose picture is in this? And whose name is written on it?" And they answer, "Caesar's." Then Jesus says one of the most powerful and well-known lines in the Bible. "So give back to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and give to God what belongs to God." What a powerful response. Jesus doesn't fall into their trap. He makes it clear that governments do have the right to collect taxes and take care of the earthly matters. But at the same time, he reminds us that we owe something much bigger to God. We were made in God's image, so our whole lives belong to Him. This teaches us something important. We live in this world, and we should be good citizens. But our first loyalty and deepest devotion must be to God. And just when it seemed like the challenges were over, the Sadducees show up. These were religious leaders who didn't believe that people would rise from the dead. They tried to trap Jesus with a made-up story based on an old law from Moses about levirate marriage, a rule where a man had to marry his brother's widow if the brother died without children. And in this story, a woman ends up marrying 7 brothers, one after the other, because each of them die. Then they ask Jesus, at the resurrection, whose wife would she be? They thought that this question would make the idea of resurrection sound ridiculous. And Jesus answers them wisely. You are wrong because you don't know the scriptures or the power of God. When people rise from the dead, they won't marry or be given in marriage. They will be like the angels in heaven. Jesus points out 2 big mistakes that they're making. First, they don't really understand the scripture. And to prove that the resurrection is real, he quotes from the Torah, the part of the Bible that they actually trusted. Jesus says, I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. He explains that God is not the God of the dead, but of the living. That means that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are still alive to God. Second, they don't understand how powerful God is. What they're trying to do is that they're trying to imagine life after death as a copy of life on earth. But Jesus shows that the resurrection life is totally changed. And things like marriage will not be needed anymore in the new heavenly life. Then, a Pharisee who was an expert in the law comes to Jesus with a common religious question. Teacher, which commandment in the law is the most important? Jesus gives him a clear and powerful answer. He says, love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. All of the law and the prophets depend on these 2 commandments. With this, Jesus sums up the entire message of the Bible. Out of the 613 laws in the Old Testament, he brings it down to just 2 main commands. If we truly love God and love others, we're doing everything God is asking for. Then Jesus asks the Pharisees a question of his own. He says, what do you think about the Christ, the Messiah? Whose son is he? And they answer, the son of David. But then Jesus quotes Psalms 110, where King David calls the Messiah Lord. So Jesus asks, if David calls him Lord, how can the Messiah be just his son? The Pharisees have no answer. They're completely silent. Jesus shows that the Messiah isn't just a human descendant of David. He is also divine. He is David's Lord. This reveals that the Messiah is more than just a man. He is God. And after that, no one dared to question Jesus again. As you can see, this chapter is full of wisdom, truth, and authority. So, what can we learn from it today? Here are my 5 takeaways. Number 1, accept the invitation and wear the right clothes. Don't just show up to God's feast without really meaning it. Accept his invitation with a true heart and let your life be changed by Jesus. Put on his righteousness. Let your life show his grace and goodness. Number 2, live with 2 loyalties. Be a responsible citizen. Pay your taxes and be kind to your neighbors and respect the law. But always remember, your first loyalty is to God. Nothing should come before him. Number 3, have hope in resurrection. Don't let the doubts or worldly thinking limit how you see God's power. Trust that there is life after death. God is the God of the living, and He has a new transformed life waiting for you. Number 4, let love be your guide. Don't get stuck in just following rules or checking boxes. In every situation, ask, how can I love God and love others right now? Real obedience always starts with love. And number 5, recognize Jesus as Lord. In the end, we all have to answer this. Who is Jesus to you? Is He just a good teacher? Or is He truly your Lord, your God, worthy of all your worship, your love, and full devotion? Matthew chapter 22 gives us a deep and powerful look at what really matters to God. It shows us that religious rules without heart are empty, and that human wisdom alone isn't enough. Most of all, it shows us Jesus completely in control, full of grace and truth, revealing Himself as the true King, the Lord, and the one who completes all of God's promises. As you head into your week, ask yourself, what part of my life do I need to give back to God? And how can I love Him and the people around me in a real, honest way? Thanks so much for joining me. We'll be back next time with another powerful chapter. Until then, keep living out the kingdom, one step at a time.
I wanna dance like David, I want a faith like Paul, I wanna sing like Silas, tearing down the prison walls. I wanna face that fire, it won't burn me though. God's got my back, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego.